Get ready to savour what could be the feel-good story of the Formula 1 season. Romain Grosjean will make his comeback behind the wheel of an F1 car by testing a title-winning Mercedes. Grosjean was lucky to escape from a horror crash in Bahrain last year with his life, but it looked like it spelled an early end to a long F1 career. Instead, thanks to Mercedes, he'll get to count a drive in one of the best cars ever built as his final memory of Formula 1. Before we get into what's happening, why it's happening with Mercedes, and if it means anything for Grosjean's wider career, remember you can hit the like button at any time if you enjoy this video, and make sure you're subscribed as well if you want to catch more of what we're doing in the future. Grosjean had to miss the final 2 rounds of the 2020 season following a fiery near-fatal crash in the Bahrain Grand Prix. It brought his F1 career to a premature end, but he said at the time he hoped to arrange a private test so he could say goodbye in a more positive way. After that desire emerged, Mercedes boss Toto Wolff publicly extended an offer for Grosjean to drive an old Mercedes. Several months later, Mercedes has followed through on that promise, making use of F1's rules that allow teams to test cars during the year if they are at least 2 years old. Grosjean will get to drive Lewis Hamilton's 2019 Mercedes W10, which, like every other of Mercedes' previous hybrid-era cars, won the F1 Drivers' and Constructors' titles. He'll initially complete a series of demonstration laps on the Sunday of the French Grand Prix, then undertake a full day's test at Paul Ricard 2 days later, exactly 7 months after his accident. Grosjean's now happily racing in the United States in IndyCar, but admits he's so excited to get back in an F1 car, especially driving a World Championship winning design, which, let's face it, is probably leagues better than any of the Hasses he's driven, and probably anything he's driven since those podium finishing years with Lotus.
Jumping back in a Formula 1 car is actually quite natural. It is a different Formula 1 car that I've been driving the last few years, but you know, I've been watching so much on boards at the Grand Prix, just trying to compare what Lewis and Valtteri were doing with what we were doing, and trying to, you know, go as fast as they were. So, sitting in a Mercedes almost feels like I've seen it before, but obviously unique position to be in.
Wolff said Mercedes didn't want Grosjean's accident to be his last moment in an F1 car, and having known the Frenchman since his title-winning Formula 3 days, wanted to mark a lengthy F1 career in a more appropriate way. Including the French Grand Prix demo laps in the offer is a particularly nice touch from Mercedes, as it gives Grosjean the chance to be part of a Grand Prix weekend again, even if it's only in a small way. Wolff said the F1 community will celebrate seeing Romain back on track, and there's no better place for that than at his home event. Wolff's promise to give Grosjean a final run in an F1 car came before the end of the 2020 season, assuming he was ruled out of the season finale and neither of the teams he drove for in his career would facilitate a farewell run. Grosjean was still hoping to sufficiently recover from the burns he sustained in his Bahrain crash and make his final F1 start. But he said if that didn't happen, he'd call every F1 team on the grid to try to get even 10 or 15 laps in a car again to give himself closure. Unfortunately, Grosjean did have to abandon his plan to race in Abu Dhabi, and Wolff's offer of a test was the only one on the table. Grosjean effectively only raced for 2 teams in his decade of Formula 1. He had an unsuccessful part season with Renault in 2009 before working his way back onto the grid with the same team, by then in its Lotus period, in 2012 as the reigning GP2 champion. He left the team just before it was reacquired by Renault to join Haas for its first F1 campaign in 2016, and stayed with the American team until being dropped for 2021. Haas didn't have the resources to give Grosjean a separate test, lacking the engine and gearboxes to run an old car. Renault should have been in a better position, and it carried out extensive 2018 car running with 2021 signing Fernando Alonso and its junior drivers all last year, but it appeared not to extend an offer. Grosjean was taken aback by the Mercedes invitation, which he learned about after reading what Wolff had told the media. In early 2021 there hadn't been any progress, but Grosjean said he still intended to call Wolff to discuss what he called a beautiful opportunity that he couldn't refuse. Grosjean was wary of badgering Mercedes while it was preparing for the start of the F1 season, and he had his own physical recovery and IndyCar transition to focus on as well. But Wolff subsequently invited Romain to Mercedes Brackley headquarters at the end of March to undergo a seat fit and spend time on the team's simulator. Grosjean's commitment to a non-oval IndyCar schedule in 2021 cemented his immediate return to racing after his violent accident. IndyCar is his main priority, but he's still exploring the possibility of adding a sports car program in the future, having spoken to his former Haas teammate Kevin Magnussen following the Dame's IMSA debut in the Daytona 24 Hours. Grosjean said he wouldn't completely rule out an F1 return in the future, but he does see it as a closed book in terms of a serious opportunity. He remains open to the idea of being a stand-in should a team require a substitute, given the ongoing threat of COVID-19 and his recent experience with the current generation of cars. But he has ruled out returning with a back-of-the-grid team on a regular basis, saying life's too short to spend time struggling to get out of Q1. That means his Mercedes test is likely to be nothing more than a return to F1 just to say a proper goodbye. But few would have expected it to be more than that, and we're still delighted to see it happening. Let us know what you think about Grosjean's Mercedes test in the comments, and share your favourite Grosjean F1 memories as well. Give this video a like if you enjoyed it, subscribe to the race if you haven't already, and hit the notifications button to be updated whenever we have a new video.